Japan Travel Smart podcast is an original standalone media project. We remain unaffiliated with any travel agency service or similar commercial venture. This is Japan Travel Smart. My name's Johnny, and I hope you join me to discover a better Japan travel experience. Welcome back to Japan Travel Smart. This is your travel companion Johnny, and this is journey number 34. 9 unsung marvels of Japanese cuisine to try on your visit. Japan Travel Smart is a bi-weekly podcast all about the joy of travel through Japan, far and wide, from the perspective of a frequent visitor who just can't get enough of the place that does it best. Welcome to a country that rewards you for having a thoughtful travel plan. We aim to make sense of Japan's meteoric rise as a destination for the world to discover and keep coming back to. Where to go, what to do, and what not to forget. Even if you've come many times before, or if you've never been and don't know where to start, we've got your back. Tune in as we rewrite the script on independent budget travel in Japan. I don't need to tell anyone that a visit to Japan always sets up an opportunity to immerse in the amazing cuisine of this country. But with daily opportunities to do so, why not make sure to consider options apart from the ones you can name off the top of your head? There's no need for you to get caught up in the first-time tourist loop of sushi, ramen, and tempura. All you need is to become aware of so many other interesting dishes and culinary staples to consider. For one, assuming that what you have access to at home is authentic enough, you should definitely be interested in branching out from the common offerings seen at your local Japanese restaurant. And if you take the most narrow interpretation of Japanese food available overseas, you will most likely be missing out on the actual day-to-day comfort food that fuels the country. For us, this will necessarily take the topic beyond a seafood-centric understanding of things to enjoy in Japan, as we should be including yoshoku, which is verifiable Japanese cuisine that is also regarded as non-native and Western influenced. Think Japanese curry rice. We also feel like we absolutely need to consider Japan's regional culinary staples to round out such a list of recommendations. So our aim for today's JTS episode is to bring attention to 9 highly popular dishes eaten in Japan that aren't complete household names overseas. Number 1. Monjayaki. The perfect grill-it-yourself late-night comfort experience to enjoy with the friends. Monjayaki shatters the typical idea of Japanese cuisine with its messy and half-cooked appearance on the griddle. But it is one of the most social and interactive dining experiences, a Tokyo original. You huddle over your own griddle on your table, you're given the ingredients, and you make the meal happen. After which everyone eats it directly off the skillet with their own little spatula. Not to be confused with the better-known okonomiyaki, but a very similar concept nevertheless. When you order manja, you are brought a bowl of chopped ingredients, mostly cabbage, and a liquid batter. First, you dump only the solid ingredients onto the griddle, chop them up, and form them into a ring. This is known as the dote. The ring is meant to hold in the runny batter that you pour on the griddle next. Once it bubbles and thickens, you mix the whole thing together and spread it flat across the griddle. The best way to serve yourself is by taking your little spatula and pressing on the portion of gooey mixture to pull toward you. Pressing will char the bottom, and you can then scrape it for a perfect bite straight off the skillet like it's meant to be. This makes it different from okonomiyaki, which becomes a solid pseudo pancake on the metal, and then moved to your dish to eat with chopsticks. Monjayaki orders are often mixed and shared as a group, and you'll be chatting while scraping up bits of food before they burn. Delicious and lots of fun. Sure, okonomiyaki is pretty darn good, but the lethal combination of mentaiko cod mochi, and melted cheese normally added as the monjayaki base ends up as a total umami flavor bomb. Number 2. Abura soba and Taiwan maze soba. A hearty, dry noodle dish guaranteed to set you off for the rest of the day. Abura soba is one of my favorite meals, period. To be fair, most versions of abura soba and maze soba can be interpreted as ramen when you take away the broth. But a soupless ramen, so to speak, really is a different experience to seek out, with plenty of restaurants in Japan focused on dry noodles, including delicious dandan noodles, which I also really recommend. The concept requires us as an international audience to abandon the ingrained idea that you need to have ramen from steaming, hours-boiled broths. The term abura soba translates to oil noodles, a dish conceived in Tokyo in the 1950s. Out goes liquid soup in favor of a highly concentrated glaze of oil, tare, and the typical ramen toppings. A perfect comfort alternative. Invented only relatively recently in 2008, consider Taiwan maze soba as the hip and trendy younger brother of the abura soba family, actually created in Nagoya, Japan, despite the name. Taiwan maze soba has had explosive popularity overshadowing its parent dish, with a flashy presentation basically engineered for social media shares. It is the same brothless concept, but with a catchy signature appearance. A raw egg yolk surrounded by spicy minced pork in the center of the bowl. That's the Nagoya template, even though there's also variations being called maze soba to capitalize on the popularity of the offshoot. Taiwan maze soba is, of course, best enjoyed in Nagoya City, available in numerous dedicated restaurants. I can suggest the Hanabi chain. Number 3. Hitsumabushi, and having eel in general. Foreign visitors to Japan often do have unagi in their plans, but I wonder how many follow through. Perhaps for many Westerners, the word eel brings to mind something rubbery, slimy, or intimidating to eat. But in Japan, freshwater eel is treated like high-end sushi, an absolute delicacy, crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, and brushed with sweet soy tare over charcoal. Eel served in Japan ends up looking like fish fillet and tastes more like a rich, smoky barbecue rather than seafood. Standard unadon, or eel bowl, is not the only way to enjoy eel, though. You can give it a novel spin. Enter hitsumabushi, another regional style of a dish from Nagoya. You know, for how much flack it gets, Nagoya certainly does come up with great ideas for food. Hitsumabushi is a unique way to enjoy the unadon specialty with specific steps to it. The unagi on rice is split into 4 equal portions. Scoop out the first portion and eat it plain as is. Use wasabi and green onion added on the second portion. Use a provided dashi broth to pour over the third portion as if to make soup. And then enjoy the final portion with whichever of the 3 ways you liked best. The prices for unagi sets in Japan reflect the relative scarcity and complexity of farming it. So unagi is a once-in-a-while special for most people that requires a bit of a splurge. For this reason, I recommend seeking out unagi as a lunch deal and trying it outside of the big cities for better deals. Completely contrary to any expectation of the meat being chewy or rubbery, the best unagi practically dissolves in your mouth on each bite. We feel the need to include a sustainability note for unagi, especially with the freshwater eel's endangered status and recent pronouncements from the EU. Even though the eel is farmed, the process still relies entirely on initially catching wild baby eels. Japan is currently making strides to achieve sustainable consumption in the domestic market. First, Japan introduced strict traceability laws designed to wipe out historical poaching of an endangered species. And now, Japanese scientists cracked the code on fully captive-bred unagi farming. So, sustainable, fully lab-raised eel is now hitting the commercial market, ensuring that an important culinary craft can be continued for generations without affecting ecosystems. Number 4. Hamburger steak. One of the favorite things for a Japanese household to have for dinner is hamburger steak. You might have expected a Japanese family dinner to consist of something like miso soup, grilled fish, and rice. But the reality on a Tuesday night is often a smoking hot plate of hambagu. Hamburger steak is also widely available in restaurants and a particularly prominent staple of family restaurant chains. While Western-style burgers are popular in Japan, hambagu completely does away with the buns. Instead, it is treated like a proper, standalone steak dish. It's shaped round like a ball, grilled, and often served sizzling on an iron skillet alongside a serving of white rice. Hambagu is a national obsession, a ubiquitous home-cooked meal that ties to childhood nostalgia, much like meatloaf would in the West. The kicker is that you eat hamburger steak with chopsticks. How is that even possible? Well, that's because hambagu patties are quite different from what you may be imagining, a deliberate adaptation to fit native dining habits. The meat blend is combined with minced sautéed onions, milk, and panko breadcrumbs. Because the patty ends up incredibly tender in this way, you don't use a steak knife. You can simply use the side of your chopsticks to slice cleanly through the meat. Hamburger steak is a perfect example of yoshoku, Western food reimagined through a Japanese lens, and ending up as food culture unique to Japan. I've had my best experiences of hambagu in specialty restaurants dedicated to it, using the premium regional beef, but widespread family restaurants in Japan are a perfectly serviceable option to try it. Number 5. Hayashi rice. The quiet alternative to Japanese curry. Walk into any grocery store in Japan and take a look at the aisle stocking box row. The offerings are often split down the middle between Japanese curry row and Hayashi rice row. These two really do rub shoulders in the Japanese home cooking space, and aesthetically they are certainly similar enough. But how does Hayashi rice warrant its separate consideration as an entry on my list? Japanese curry is defined by its yellowish hue and a warm, spicy kick. Hayashi rice goes in a completely different direction. It ditches the South Asian spice rack and looks toward classical French cuisine. Hayashi rice is a rich, dark beef stew served over white rice. Japanese curry can be pretty liberal with its ingredient composition, especially in chain restaurants. But standard Hayashi rice should feature strips of tender beef. The base of demi-glace sauce includes red wine and tomato paste. The other big takeaway is that it's non-spicy, even though Japanese curry is already an adaptation with this spice toned way down, suiting the Japanese palate. Compared to Western beef stew, Hayashi rice is much more concentrated and super smooth, packing deep umami. What's the reason for the name of Hayashi rice when the dish is clearly foreign-inspired? Well, here are competing explanations for the origin of the name, but one holds more credence while the others are pretty speculative. The most likely linguistic explanation is that since the dish was very probably introduced as hashed beef and rice, hashed became hayashi, hence hayashi rice. Alternatively, there's been attempts to link its invention to anyone that should have been named Hayashi working at an early Western-style restaurant, or even the historic founder of the famous Maruzen bookstore company named Yuteki Hayashi. These alternate theories lack hard evidence, though. Hayashi rice today is often found on the menu in many cafe restaurants, a holdover from Japan's late 19th century obsession with everything French. If you believe to be completely familiar with Japanese curry rice and its many variants, definitely be on the lookout for this alternative. Number 6. Doria. Doria, which is to say rice gratin, as eaten in Japan, definitely deserves an inclusion. I've stumbled upon it many times on a menu without originally intending to have it, and I settle for it. You'll most likely find it as shrimp doria, ebi doria. Most international visitors probably wouldn't fathom that a comforting, cheesy, oven-baked seafood rice gratin is a beloved staple found all across Japan. And yes, this looks like a classic French casserole. Doria is constructed with a base of savory pilaf rice. It is topped with seafood or meat, completely smothered in a thick layer of white sauce, covered in cheese, and baked in a scorching oven, just like you'd expect of a casserole. However, doria wasn't actually imported from Europe, at least not in the same sense as other Western-style dishes appropriated by Japan. I mean, clearly it's a casserole, just not with pasta or potatoes. Its invention is formally credited to a Swiss chef already in Japan in the 1930s. Sally Whale was a master chef at the Hotel New Grand in Yokohama. According to legend, a prominent guest at the hotel fell ill and requested something warm, comforting, and easy to digest that also featured seafood. Chef Will scrambled into the kitchen and threw together what we know today as shrimp doria. And you can still find the original doria available today as a premium dish at the New Grand Yokohama. Although you don't really have to go there. This may not come as a shocker, but the recipe has since leaked out and has long been adapted into home kitchens as everyday comfort food. You can find doria today as an option at a surprising number of sit-down places, including kisaten retro coffee shops and family restaurants across the country. We've also had it at dedicated restaurants at department store restaurant floors. If it's anything like our experience in Japan, doria will find you before you find it. Number 7. Gyutan, aka beef tongue. Beef tongue is the favorite rep and pride of Sendai City, but also an unlikely and surprising overall Japan food rep. In the West, offal and tongue are often relegated to slow-cooked stews, if even considered at all. Japan turns it into a high-end, charcoal-grilled delicacy. Gyutan is practically unavoidable in Sendai, the largest city of the Tohoku region. In Sendai, gyutan is sliced thick and precise, with the skill of a dedicated chef. It's aged for a few days to concentrate the flavor and flash broiled. If you've never had beef tongue, it doesn't taste or feel like normal beef. It has a distinct snap when you bite into it, and then a tender chew. I would say it's definitely more resilient than standard cuts. Gyutan isn't usually served in the style of Japanese barbecue, but instead as part of a traditional teishoku set meal that's been perfected for it. Instead of standard white rice, gyutan is traditionally paired with a steaming bowl of mugi meshi, barley rice. The basic soup component here is a clear broth simmered for hours with beef oxtail and shredded onions. The set is rounded out with asazuke pickles and nanban miso paste to alternate with bites of the beef tongue. Not that many internationals venture to the Tohoku region of Japan, but when you do come to Sendai, we suggest you give Yutan a try around the famous Kokubuncho Entertainment District, just as we did, and preferably as a lunch deal to get the upper hand on value. Consider it a rite of passage that demonstrates that some of the most remarkable food experiences in Japan are tucked away in regional strongholds. Number 8. Chicken nanban. Chicken nanban is something that I know I have more frequently than most other things. Fried chicken is obviously a winner, and the tartar sauce is stupid good. Actually, yeah, I'll have to admit this is pretty much my favorite thing to eat. It's literal comfort between one's chopsticks. Most international tourists in Japan discover karage, or Japanese fried chicken, as street food, or the hyped convenience store version, and they think they've reached the pinnacle of crispy poultry. We need to set the record straight on this. The chicken in chicken nanban, usually breast or thigh meat, is dredged in flour and then dipped in egg batter before being deep fried. No surprise there. We need a soft jacket that can sponge the sauces. The literal second the hot chicken emerges from the deep fryer, it's submerged in soy and rice vinegar glaze. This brightens up the chicken with acidic tang. The word nanban historically referred to European traders and the introduction of vinegar-based preservation styles. And then comes the amazing tartar. Japanese tartar sauce could basically be its own thing. It's got the objectively superior Japanese Kewpie style of mayonnaise, with added finely chopped hard-boiled eggs, sweet pickled onions, and maybe a hint of lemon. You can already guess this stuff has to be amazing on fried chicken. A total flavor bomb. After getting its start in the restaurants of Miyazaki Prefecture in the 1960s, it spread like wildfire to the rest of Kyushu and Japan. Maybe it's addictive enough to make me question why chicken nanban isn't yet a household name beyond their borders. I hope I'm not overselling it. I've never had subpar chicken nanban, and I think it's pretty hard to mess up no matter where you go for it. We're at the final stretch, and I still need to tell you about what I think is the biggest low-profile marvel of Japanese cuisine, by a long shot actually. But first, I want to take a moment to tell you about how you can best support a podcast hosted by someone who walks the walk. We almost only ever talk about places we've actually been and things we've actually done in Japan. We know that it's getting tricky to gauge genuine human effort in content creation, so we are trying to keep it as real as can be. I hope you can recognize the extent to which this podcast is a product of real-life experience and fieldwork, to put it that way. And surely enough, I like to use my own wording and my own voice to produce this show, and even though that takes time, it's how I think it should be done. We want to keep this going. Buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com. Find the link to send me a tip on the show notes, and you have my thanks for helping make Japan travel better for everyone. And now, back to the show. And finally, to introduce what I consider perhaps the biggest unsung marvel of Japanese cuisine to try on your visit, I have number 9, oden. The perfect winter warmer of the body and the spirit. When the weather drops, this one pops up everywhere. I'm trying my best to imagine the average overseas tourist walking into a 7-Eleven in Tokyo, seeing a steaming metal vat of mysterious dark brown simmered items, and being inclined to request a piece of gray konjac or a wedge of daikon. Well, that seems like an unlikely event in my mind. Oden is almost alien to the Western concept of Japanese food. For how popular this stuff is, It's probably a little out there for most. It doesn't rely on any crispy textures or heavy sauces. It's a discovery based entirely on umami and different mouthfeels. Oden is a type of hot pot, but completely different from the usual flash cooking of fresh meats. The ingredients in oden, either the solids or the shirataki noodles, offer textures that we rarely encounter most anywhere representing Japanese cuisine outside of Japan. It certainly isn't sleek, colorful, or photogenic. Instead, we have a surprising variety of elements like fish cakes, tofu, and root vegetables that are slow simmered for hours in transparent dashi broth. You know, the very same broth that tastes like Japan. Oden pieces act like a literal sponge for the soup. Go ahead and order a round of daikon radish, which are the round white pieces, konjac jelly, these are usually cut in triangles, a nice hard-boiled tamago, egg, and a wedge of hanpen, that's the fish cake piece. Sure, you'll find oden at konbini stores, but it's also great to have at a yatai street cart in the evening. Pull up to a stool next to the locals over a steaming vat and experience a really cozy breather to the Japanese winter. Usually, you order specific individual items from the oden vat, which for most would be a bit challenging. But there's also opportunities to get a sampler set as a regular menu item. Did I mention oden is really, really tasty? It was once practically heaven for me when I had it at a rest house in the middle of a walking trail in autumn. Oden can be left sitting hot and simmering, and it's ready to serve all day. If you want a little bit of a kick on each bite, you can use a dab of karashi mustard. Variety is the spice of life, and we want to be sure to make it clear to everyone. Japanese cuisine offers true variety to seek out. Assuming you don't have an important dietary restriction, you can make it really easy to not have to repeat a single dish on your visit. You'll find chicken, pork, or beef without a problem, which is key for those who are not that big on seafood. And then, on one hand, we've got Yoshoku cuisine, inspired by the West, and on the other, we have pretty fun and wild stuff like monjayaki and maze soba, with familiar ingredients that facilitate legit comfort. Food anxiety in Japan is nonsensical, so go out there and try something new that sounds good to you. I do want to thank anyone that's taken a moment to support us via Ko-fi tips. You guys are real ones. If you want to contribute back in a way that makes the most impact and offers real encouragement to continue the project, do check out the donation link in the show notes. And if you represent something out there that may be worth pitching to me, collab or business, I am all ears. Shoot me a message at japantravelsmart@gmail.com. My name's Johnny, and I'm signing off with your reminder to, above all, be smart, and everything else will fall in place.